Welcome into Campo and Joe. It is game week. We could probably scream and yell that for the next 30 minutes, and you all would pretty much agree with everything we're saying. But it's the Jaguars and the rest of the National Football League getting ready to roll. Joe C. from XL Primetime, noon to 3 weekdays, right here on the Superstation, and our head coach, Dave Campo, who he knows this feeling better than we do, because as a head coach, as an assistant coach here, and a couple of other big NFL stops for a lot of years, this is fun.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is what it's all about. I mean, this team right now is extremely excited, but I can promise you the Colts players are extremely excited as well.
Yeah.
It's the opening ball game. The team that makes the least amount of mistakes is going to win the football game. That's the way it goes.
All right. Now, listen, we're going to try. We know that all of Duval that tunes in and catches Campo and Joe on podcast or Facebook Live or just listens to us downloading. We really appreciate it. We love it. And let us know throughout the season, because we are definitely looking forward to it. And I think the sky is high. We've talked about it. The expectations are way, way up there. So before we get to the actual game, scouting the Colts, have you seen some of these forecasts? Have you seen some of the prognostications that are thrown out there for all of Duval?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of Kool-Aid being thrown out there right now, people drinking. I look at it like it doesn't matter, because the players, either they believe in themselves or they don't.
Right.
And I think a perfect example was Colorado this weekend against TCU.
Yeah.
They believe.
Yeah.
And they played like that. So, as us looking at it, you say, well, boy, are the expectations too high? Are they, is it going to change them? I don't think that it makes any difference at all to them right now. This team is confident. And I think they'll go into this football game that way. And I don't know it matters where everybody's picking them.
Well, it's funny. I try and be a sports radio doctor from time to time. I try and pretend that I know a little something about psychology. TLD, the lovely Diane, she was a psychology major. So
you got a little home cooking there.
Yeah, so I quiz her every once in a while. But I try and get into the psychology. So before we talk about this particular team, and I tend to agree with everything you're saying, let's go back to 2017, where they made it to the AFC Championship game, 10 minutes from the Super Bowl. Miles Jack wasn't down. We heard a ton of it. And we've talked about it a bunch on 1010XL, particularly on XL Primetime. They came into that next season, the players I'm talking about,
right,
and they felt like they had been crowned. They were ready to be anointed. They got to the doorstep. The next thing was knocking down the door. Well, we all know what happened. They fell flat on their face. So is there something to that? And was it I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase this. Was it that group of players in that locker room, or is it totally different from this group of players?
Well, first of all, I don't know that group, from 2017.
Right.
I wasn't here, at that time for any length of time.
He was coaching Southern Cal at that point.
I was out at Southern Cal. And I can only go on what I see from this team.
Right.
And this team, culture-wise, starting from the head coach on down, is a unit that I don't believe that there's one or two players that are in charge of the whole operation. I think there's a bunch of players that aren't worried about, where they sit, who's getting the credit, who's getting the ball.
Right.
And I think that bodes better for a team like that than it does for a bunch of superstars that think they're going to be the reason.
Right.
The Arden Keys of the world. They don't invent, we got guys that are doing their own thing. And I think that's where this team is.
And this team does feel like team. It looks like team. It looks like it's better led. I'll just go back real quick for you Jaguar fans out there. And I do try and compare, but I also want to contrast too, because there's a lot of differences between these two teams.
Right.
Blake Bortles caught lightning in a bottle in the postseason. He was, honestly, step for step with Tom Brady on a stat sheet in that particular game. He outdueled the Pittsburgh Steelers and Ben Roethlisberger. It was a 45-42 game. And you had guys that came out of that season, the Jalens, the Telvins, the Leonards, a lot of guys that thought, hey, we got this. Yeah. It was Fournette's rookie year. It was Jalen ready to cash a big old check. It was Telvin who had just gotten a big contract. This is a totally different bunch, just in terms of we can't we cannot be full of ourselves, and they're much more grounded because of Doug Peterson, I believe.
Well, and I've said this a number of times on shows that I've been on. This team was 9-8.
Yeah.
This team was not 13-4,
right?
Or 12-5. They were 9-8. So I think this team, even though and they were down 27 points, in the first playoff game,
right?
So to me, this team is a little bit more grounded, from the standpoint that there's a lot of unfinished business out there. And I think if they look at it that way, which I believe they do by the way they practice, by the way they talk, all those kind of things, I feel like this is a much more grounded group. And, I'm hopeful that, and to be honest with you, there's reasons why a team gets upset in this league because catching lightning in a bottle can be there for one game, but not for 2 games and 3 games and 4 games. Right. That's where you get into trouble.
And I think it's an excellent point too that a team can get full of themselves, and that can happen to them.
Well, one of the problems I think they have in Dallas, to be perfectly honest with you, is that they're so revered there to where they feel entitled in a lot of ways, and hopefully this team is not like that. I think you've got guys that are a little bit more grounded in what they have to do to make it happen.
Gosh, we could go down the list as far as players that we think are either hungry or have reached a maturity level where they're ready to lead.
Chips on the shoulder.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a bunch of guys on this team that are that way.
Yeah, and so I love it. But on at least under the heading of they're getting a lot of hype, Pete Prisco, who knows his team very well, covered him for a long time. CBS Sports, we love him. He's has regular appearances on 1010XL. Anyway, he's picking them in the 49ers to take it to the Super Bowl. I tend to agree with what you said when we first opened it up. That team inside does not care. And we heard from fans on XO Primetime today when we were talking about it. Doug Peterson doesn't care what these people are saying. He knows he's got to coach them up for them to get anywhere close to that.
Well, he's made the statement it's his job to make sure it wasn't one and done.
Exactly.
And to me, the only way you can do that is that there's only one game that's important, and that's this week. Whoever that is, it doesn't matter whether it's Kansas City, whether it's the Colts, whether it's Buffalo. Whoever we're playing that week, that's the game that makes the difference. If we win that one, we got a chance to go and take care of another one.
Yeah.
But you got to win that one.
And we have said it a bunch. This team, for the here and now, is looking at an AFC South team or AFC South division and NFC South division that is as gettable as they have been in a long, long time. Take advantage of it. Do it Coach's way. Win one of them at a time. It sounds cliche, but it's real. Now, we need to look big picture, touch on a few storylines, teams that you do think can go deep. But I'm just going to stay on the Prisco pick here.
Okay.
I feel like Kyle Shanahan has proven that he's a really, really good coach. I don't have my starting quarterback. He's injured. Who's the next guy? Okay, I'll turn him into a start. What? He's injured. All right, give me the next. He's proven that.
Right.
But I feel like that's a team that may take a step back this year.
Yeah.
Christian McCaffrey gets used a lot. He's in on somewhere around 70% of their offense. Brock Purdy's coming back from a significant injury. Trey Lance is dealt. There is no Jimmy Garoppolo parachute if something goes bad. Nick Bosa wants more money. I feel like if I'm trying to identify a team that might take a step back, might be them.
Yeah, it could be. I think the one thing, though, that has been proven over time is exactly what you said. They've been able to do it from year to year based on
they really have.
Who they have. It's like Belichick. You look at Belichick, he's been able to do it week after week after week.
Right.
Now, the difference is, and what I meant was year after year, but week after week after year, and but the difference is the one thing about Shanahan, he's proven that he can do it with whoever the quarterback is.
Right.
That's the mark of a good organization when that can happen.
Yeah, it's true. All right, now let's use that as a segue, and we'll get to the AFC, and let's drill down on the AFC South right now, because what he has proven is that I can still make a cake with whatever ingredients you give me. Now let's go to the AFC South. Mike Vrabel has got some of the same ingredients that he had before. He's got some new ones. Can they seem to be, you can agree or disagree, they seem to be the closest pursuer of Jacksonville to try and take this division. Can they have a bounce back year?
See those weeds over there?
Yeah.
He's waiting in those weeds.
He always
there.
is.
He's waiting there.
Yeah.
He's not saying much. He just he'll have his team ready. I wouldn't count them out at all. But do I think our team is better than theirs?
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
But, when you've got a team like that, that's kind of what I'm saying about a San Francisco or whatever. Yeah. It's a mentality that we're going to do everything we can. They were embarrassed last year to lose the number of games they lost right in a row. And remember, when they've had Tannehill in there, he's been pretty darn good. Mm-hmm. He's not great, but he's pretty good. Yeah. So, I wouldn't, I think we have more firepower than anybody in the league.
Yeah.
You gotta do it on that day.
Yeah.
I just watched our game against the Eagles last night.
Yeah.
And last year, and we were kicking their tail.
Up 14.
Yep.
To down 14.
Right. And then we had one bad break. Mm-hmm. The quarterback dropping the ball when he get scrambled out of the pocket.
Yeah. What was he, 5 turnovers that day?
Is that but that first one, we were on the move again.
Yeah.
Up 14.
Yeah.
One play like that can change the whole dynamic of the football game. That's why that's why they play them. It's not on paper.
And you looked at that one because of Shane Steichen and what he was able to do with Jalen Hurts last year. So let's go ahead and get to this game, and then we'll come back and I want to talk a little bit about the AFC and where you do rank them, because you made a nice little forecast for Trevor on the show that we need to bring up, and we'll probably dip our toe in the NFC just a little bit, at least for the beginning of this season. Okay. All right, when you're looking at that game, Shane Steichen was the offensive coordinator for the Eagles. He's now the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. He turned Jalen Hurts into an MVP candidate before he got hurt. Jalen Hurts, the postseason before last, he kind of got embarrassed by Tampa Bay. Looked like he was a little lost. Shane Steichen turned him into, like we just said, a really good player. Now, what did you see out of that game, and what do you expect him to be able to take to Indianapolis with Colt?
Well, I think Richardson, is kind of a clone of Jalen Hurts from the standpoint that he's a maneuverable quarterback. Mm-hmm. I don't think anybody thought that Hurts' accuracy was anything special until he became Hurts, and took the team the way he did. And so I think the ingredient of having Richardson, I think that was a big part of Steichen's decision to take him that high, is that I think he feels like he can mold him into that type of player. Now, he didn't do it automatically with Hurts.
Right.
It took him a while. This guy is a rookie that he's dealing with. Mm-hmm. And so, he's going to use some of the things that Hurts used. I think he's going to be on the perimeter a lot, whether or not that's movement passes, whether it's RPOs where, he can throw it or hand it,
right,
or he can keep it, or whether it's just scrambling around. That's where he's going to make his game with them.
The thing is that Jalen Hurts was such an accomplished quarterback in college and went from Alabama to Oklahoma and still did great things, turned into a better passer when Lincoln Riley had him. And then, as you said, he struggled early on in the NFL game because it's just so much faster. You got to be a much more decisive, accurate player.
Right.
And he turned the corner. So I think anytime we bring up Anthony Richardson versus anybody, somebody's got to point out that those other guys did a lot of great things in college. He didn't do hardly anything in college.
Right.
He's tied for the least number of starts for a quarterback drafted in the first round. He and Mitch Trubisky, a total of 13 starts in their college career.
Yep.
And so I'm sorry, Coach, and I'm probably one of those guys drinking the teal Kool-Aid. I am licking my chops going up against Anthony Richardson in week 1.
And you should. The only thing that bothers me is his ability to run.
Yeah.
His passing game doesn't bother me at all.
Right.
They don't have a bunch of wide receivers that are big playmakers. I mean, they've got guys that can, Pierce can run.
Alec Pierce.
You got to pay attention as our guy Shaquille Griffin found out.
Toasted.
Which was his last hurrah. But, Pittman is a good receiver. He's a possession receiver. He can go up and get the ball. So it's going to take them a while, in my opinion. I'm glad we're opening with them. And, I look for us to win the football game.
All right. So as we take a look at some of the storylines in this game, it is neutralizing Anthony Richardson. It's how many times is he going to run? I did the he versus Justin Fields comparison. And again, I'm not saying that he accomplished anything near what Justin Fields did as a college quarterback. I'm not doing that. But I'm talking about just from a skill set and from a bailout point of view, meaning snap, read, I don't see anything, I'm taking off and running. Right. And so if you're Mike Caldwell and coach many defenses you coached, what would you employ first off to make sure that you neutralize him and what the Colts are going to try?
Well, first of all, I'm going to play zone.
Okay.
We're going to have to play zone because number one, you got to have eyes on the guy. That's the first thing. And so whatever you do, if you do go man to man, you're going to have somebody dropping in and spying on the quarterback, wherever that is, whether it's a safety or whatever it is there.
Right.
So you're going to have to do that. The second thing is that we're going to have to be very, very disciplined in our rush lanes. Whatever we're doing, we've got to make darn sure that we know that we have the lanes covered to where he doesn't have an easy access. For example, one of my concerns is that I think we did a great job this preseason and in training camp of running the TE games where the defensive tackle, let's say Harris, is bursting upfield on the outside,
right,
and Walker's starting up and coming underneath.
Okay.
Well, you can't do that. You got to keep your athletes on the outside because if he scrambles, you got to have some guys that can run.
Yeah, makes
the defensive tackles are not going to handle him.
No.
He's the contained man now when you do that.
Right.
So that's definitely going to be a factor. When you blitz, you're probably going to have to zone blitz, which is going to keep guys outside to contain.
Right. So it still basically takes care of an area of the field that you think Anthony Richardson can take off and run and exploit the Jags.
And it also puts 5 guys in all the lanes.
I think this is important. And if you're listening, you got to visualize what Coach is saying. If you're watching, you certainly can understand that. And he mentions lanes a lot because we always hear the gap protection, guy gets covered up. You better make sure that you have your gap responsibility taken care of.
Run and pass.
Yeah,
same exact thing. But, where you really get into trouble is if you have guys lined up, 2 guys outside the guard, nobody inside, and you rush that way, the quarterback's going to step up and go right up the middle.
Yeah.
So you got to have one guy outside the guard. You got to have one guy inside the guard. Now, there's still openings when you've got a 4-man rush. That's why you have to have eyes on a quarterback because there is a way for the guy to scramble. And that's where bringing a zone blitz, even though it's a 4-man blitz,
right,
the guy the outside linebacker that's dropping on the weak side has outside leverage on everything. Yeah. So it's really 5 guys. And you're covering up one of those lanes inside.
They weren't the hottest, set the edge team last year.
No.
And so I'm calling for Mike Caldwell to be not like a quantum leap, but a much better defensive coordinator because he knows who his personnel is. He's maintained the roster pretty well. There hasn't been a whole lot of exodus other than Arden Key, the guy that built it all.
Yeah, right.
But other than that, they've been able to keep most of their guys. So how much better will they be? Just making sure they set the edge.
Yeah, I think they'll be better. And I think that the one thing about it is your outside guys, when they're coming, it's more of a bull rush. And that's kind of what Walker has done. As long as he can come off and punch the guy back. We got to get a little inside pressure. The loss of Hamilton hurts us a little bit, but the inside pressure allows those outside guys to stay outside and not have to take a lot of chances.
See, that's what Devon Hamilton, and look, Jaguar fans are paying a great deal of attention to this. We all know that he's on the reserve injured list. He's got a chance to come back. It could be as early as 4 games. We don't know. But as you look at this depth chart, and they still are not 100% sure on the health of Foley Fatukasi,
right,
and they feel like he's going to be okay. They come out with a depth chart, coach, and you've got Foley listed inside on the nose. Then you got Roy Robertson Harris, which is his usual position, the big end, and they have Adam Gossis out there too,
right,
it's certainly worked. But they're going to have to make sure they button everything up with those guys.
I think Gotsis will be actually better as far as a pass rusher than he is a run defender.
I like his ability.
He's got a little bit better athlete and right there.
And didn't he make plays from that position down the stretch last year?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think that's a plus. I don't know that they'll be quite as stout on the inside run game because he's not that big a guy. But I think he'll be a guy that has a chance to beat some guards and do some things that way.
They went out and they signed Ross Blacklock, which is a guy, when we go back a couple years that we talked about with our draft coverage, he was a second-round pick.
Right.
What was it, 3 drafts ago?
3, yeah.
And hasn't done he's done a little bit, but not a lot. Anyway, he has been brought into the team. We'll find out where he factors, but they do have Angelo Blackson behind Double RH, and they want to see if they can get these guys to make plays on the inside. There's going to be that rotation.
Right.
And as you have maintained, with this 3-4, they should be able to stop the run and make Anthony Richardson.
Yeah. Hopefully that's going to be their plan for sure. And that's going to be zone defense.
Right.
Whether you have to go 8-man front, 7-man front to open sets, you still got guys with eyes on the quarterback.
All right, so I looked at the numbers. Justin Fields ran it 160 times. He averaged 7+ yards per carry.
Right.
He went well over 1,000 yards rushing the football. That's running it about 10 times a game. I don't know whether Anthony Richardson is going to run it twice as often, but I kind of get the feeling he might, just out of a little desperation.
Yeah.
But I at least needed to look at those numbers. That's only 9 per game.
Yeah.
How many would you forecast for AR?
Yeah.
I bet it's a dozen or more.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, they'll have some designed runs for him. They'll have quarterback draw. They'll have quarterback power, probably. I don't think they're going to be able to make a lot of hay with just handing the ball to the tailbacks. I think they'll put the extra, when they run a quarterback power, there's one guy there that's unaccounted for, the quarterback.
Right.
So they'll have some designed runs, but I'm more concerned with him, scrambling and getting out on the perimeter because I think that's what they're going to do. They're going to bootleg him out. They're going to, he'll probably do some running.
So honestly, it's all about him and what position Shane Steichen puts him in.
Right.
All right, let's go to the other side. You say what you said to us about number 16, the quarterback running this team, that you think is poised for greatness this year.
Well, he's definitely a better quarterback right now than he was a year ago, which bodes well for us. A lot of the guys that are an MVP candidate or the top 5-6 quarterbacks, they do a lot of good things, but they've got to have guys around them. And I think that's why this guy has a chance to be special. Not only is he gifted and seeing the field better and doing all those kind of things, but you can go from sideline to sideline. He's got guys that can make plays. And his ability to get rid of the ball quickly is going to keep the sacks down. So we should score some points this year. And the teams that score points, the quarterback is a big part of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's where he has a chance because of the people around him to do something special.
I don't think there's any getting away from the fact that you have 3 legit receivers. You have what looks to be 2 good tight ends because Brenton Strange will have a hand in this game plan. 2 really good running backs if Tank Bigsby is as advertised. So now you are up into that 7 number of weapons that Trevor has to get the ball to.
Yeah, no question about it. And then they've got some role guys like Agnew and I don't know who's going to be inactive or whatever. Somebody will be inactive, whether it's Washington or Cooks or both of them, I don't know. But they've got they've got firepower receivers.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing. And to be honest with you, watching our game against the Colts, even the one we lost, we ran the ball at them. Mm-hmm. And I think we'll do that as well. That puts the opportunity for the quarterback to make some big plays as well.
So you said Trevor Lawrence, 2023 All-Pro.
All-Pro. And I'm not backing off it. I think the kid's improved enough to where he's got that ability.
I love it. All right, so let's just wrap it up with, if you had to rank the AFC teams in order, how would you rank them? And you only have to go 4 deep, but the principal players are the Chiefs,
yep,
the Bengals,
yep,
the Bills,
yep,
the Jags. I'm not going to include the Chargers. I'm not going to include the Dolphins, at least not right now, unless you want to include somebody. But who would you put? What order would you put them in?
Well, I would put Kansas City still at number 1. Mm-hmm. I would say number 2 is probably Buffalo. Mm-hmm. And the reason I say that is because, Burrow's a little banged up. Mm-hmm. We don't know where he's going to be in the course of this thing. So I would say Cincinnati would be 3. I would say the Jags would be 4. Mm-hmm. I would say the Jets would be 5. Mm-hmm. Dolphins 6.
Yeah, and it's so funny because I wrestle with this, and I'm going to move the Jaguars up. Move the Jaguars up in terms of total team, best teams in the AFC. Yep. The Chiefs are still the Chiefs.
Right.
The Bengals have a good enough defense to go on the road and beat the Buffalo Bills.
But the offensive line,
a little
still
suspect,
the same.
No question about it.
Hasn't changed.
And then the other part of this, the Jets, the Bills, and the Dolphins are all in the same division. They're going to beat up on each other a little bit.
That's
the
true.
Bengals are going to have a tough division to come out of. I'm going Chiefs first. I'm going Jags second. Then I'm going Bengals. Then I'm going Bills.
Up there. Well, I'll take that.
Yeah. So we'll see what they do.
We'll see what happens.
All right. We are just getting started. We've got 18 weeks of Campo and Joe in the regular season. Let's hit our bobblehead, Coach, because we are fired up and ready to go. Appreciate y'all listening to us. We'll be back next week when the Jags are 1-0.
There we go.